Good afternoon. Welcome to Wayfind Marketing Live, where we have made it our goal, our mission, and our purpose to help you simplify your marketing. So for business owners, nonprofit leaders, this is for you. And today on Friday, we focus on marketing. And really, we're trying to do two things under that umbrella of making marketing easier. And that's, we want to encourage you because we know it's hard. Running a business, running a nonprofit, it's hard work. And marketing is one of those things that's essential, but a lot of times it can feel overwhelming. And the other thing we want to do is equip you. We want to give you the knowledge, the tools, the information that you need so you can market your business, your nonprofit effectively, so you can reach the right people, and so you can win more customers, so you can get more donors and have more of an impact. And so I'm Steve Phipps. I am the president of Wayfind Marketing, and I get to be on here with AnnieLaurie Walters, who is one of our content creators, a marketing manager, and just a marketing extraordinaire. So AnnieLaurie, how are you today?
Well, everything I know, I learned from you.
Yeah, I pay her to say that. Well, so today, I'm really excited about today's episode. Today, we are going to be focusing on something that a lot of people miss when it comes to marketing. A lot of times when people think about marketing, they think about website, they think about social media or pay-per-click advertising or any number of different things that are absolutely important for our marketing, but they miss something that's truly fundamental, something that's foundational. And that has to do with how people buy. And what we're going to talk about today is relationship, because every business, every nonprofit, we have a relationship with our customers, with our donors, with the people we're serving. And there are 3 steps that we're going to talk about that people go through. And if we miss those steps, if we try to go to the end without going through the first 2 steps, we're going to miss business. We're going to lose opportunities because we didn't follow the process that people go through. And it's not a marketing process. It's not something that we came up with. It's just human nature. It's the way we relate with people. It's the way we relate with brands and organizations. And so that's something that we're going to jump into. And before we do that, I do want to say for our viewers, those that are going to listen on our podcast, we're glad you're here. If you're watching us, if you're with us live, please feel free to ask questions. If you have comments, if something stands out to you that really was impactful, feel free to type that in the comment. We'd love to be able to interact with you. And you can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook. Please find us there, like us, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Look for us on all the different podcast platforms, from iTunes to Spotify to Anchor. And so anyway, but before we do that, we've got a great example of this 3-part process in action.
Yeah, we had a great show on Tuesday. We had our friend John Carroll on the show, Navigating Business. If you didn't get a chance to see that, you can grab it off our website under the blog section, wayfindmarketing.com. But our friend John, who is the executive director of City Leadership and the founder of what's kind of become a whole movement in our city, Memphis, Tennessee, called Choose 901. And my husband and I moved here from the Washington, D.C. area just a few years ago. I grew up here, but I'd been gone almost 20 years. And, as I would follow friends on social media or, come back to town to visit my family, I would see this hashtag Choose 901 kind of all over the place. And I didn't realize that my friend from college, John Carroll, came up with it. And I certainly didn't know the story behind it. But as we were kind of debriefing on the show from Tuesday, Steve, I think it was you that just recognized and pointed out everything we're going to talk about today. We can see that in the transformation of the whole Choose 901 movement. So why don't you just share that real quick with folks listening?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're not in Memphis and you hear us talking about Choose 901, 901 is the Memphis area code. And as AnnieLaurie mentioned, John Carroll who is a fantastic guy. He and his organization, City Leadership, have had a lot of impact on Memphis. They recognized that a challenge that folks were having was attracting college students to Memphis. And so what they did, and I'm going to illustrate the 3 steps that we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. What they recognized is that Memphis just was not on the radar for graduating college students. And so these organizations, like programs like Memphis Teacher Residency, MTR, Downline, these programs that have programs specifically for recent college grads, they were having difficulty getting people to Memphis. And what they found, what John and his team found in the research, is that people just weren't aware of Memphis. It wasn't on their radar. San Diego, sure. Denver, sure. Dallas, Atlanta, yeah, absolutely. Those are on the radar. Memphis would only be on the radar if they had a relationship here. Well, so they set out to change that. They set out to get Memphis on the radar. So it's not one of our 3 points, but it's worth noting that a big part of marketing is awareness. People need to know that you exist. And so that's really the precursor to the 3 steps that we're going to talk about today. So there's this awareness factor. And in that, what they did, and the first thing we're going to talk about today is curiosity. They had to pique curiosity. What is it about Memphis? To create this idea in the minds of college students that there's something about Memphis that they want to find out. What's going on there? Why, all of a sudden it's on the radar. So why? What's going on? So curiosity. And that's what they did. They started working, different areas and creating this idea of Choose 901. So they started creating curiosity. Well, the next step is enlightenment. Okay, so again, the 3 things that we're talking about today, we're talking about curiosity. People need to be aware and they want to learn more. And that's basically, what do you do? Who are you? So in the context of Choose 901, well, who is Memphis? Number 2 is enlightenment. That's where they really start digging in and they want to learn more. And that's where we have the opportunity to build trust. And so in the context of something like Choose 901, people would start wanting to learn about what does Memphis offer? What would it be like to live there? How could I have impact? Would I enjoy it? What are the amenities? What are the resources? All these kinds of things. And so that's where we build relationship. We're building trust. And then the final step, so we go from curiosity, where people are just kind of looking, getting some information. And then we go to enlightenment, where, okay, we're building trust and credibility. And then we go to commitment. And that's the first point of risk. And so there can be a couple of different levels of commitment. We'll talk about that shortly. But ultimately, that's where they were able to start getting more college students to come to Memphis and really help elevate not only these organizations that were trying to recruit more college students, but elevate the city as a whole. And, AnnieLaurie, you mentioned just a few minutes ago, now Choose 901 is a hashtag that people will toss on to their Instagram post. They'll put it on Twitter and Facebook. And it really has morphed into this movement in the city to reflect pride about living here, things that people are proud of. So that is the Choose 901 is a great
of its own.
Yeah.
People continue to use it. And, I bet most of the people who throw that hashtag up don't even really know the backstory behind it. But it did much more than just recruit recent college grads to Memphis. I think it really instilled a sense of pride and ownership in the hearts and the minds of the people who live in this county. And spreading. And John talked a lot about that in the show on Tuesday. So if you're interested in learning more about that, make sure you go back and listen to the Tuesday show. Absolutely.
And I think that's a good bridge into the 3 things that we're going to talk about. And so I'm just going to put a graphic up here for a minute. And, at its heart, marketing is a relationship. Really, and not just marketing, every brand, every product, every service is establishing some sort of a relationship with its customers. And now, granted, for a $5 product, that's not a very deep relationship. There's not a lot being invested. But for nonprofits, for businesses that have higher dollar services, and even those that do have the $5 products, we still go through these 3 steps. And as I mentioned earlier, the first step is curiosity. And here what's happening is we're really answering the question, what do you do? And really, why does it matter to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So at this stage in the process, what are people thinking? What's on their mind?
Well, what ends up happening, AnnieLaurie, is when we think about our marketing activity, we're doing things to create awareness. We're doing activities to get people to our website, our social media channels. Maybe we're sending out emails, we're doing advertising, we're networking, making phone calls, all sorts of different activities. And once somebody becomes aware of our service, once somebody becomes aware of our product, our brand, well, that's the point where that goes to curiosity. And really the question that's underneath of that is just, well, we talk about it as the grunt test when somebody goes to your website. And that's, what do you do? Why does it matter to me? And in some cases, what do I do next? And that's where they're just trying to figure out, are you, as a brand, as a product, as a service, as a nonprofit, are you worth my time? Because our brains are very pragmatic. If you think about how many messages you're bombarded with every single day, it's thousands of messages through all the different channels that we are using for communication. And so our brain is very adept at filtering things out. Is this worth my time? Is it not? Is it worth my time? Is it not? And it's a snap judgment. And so that's why it is critical for marketers to be aware of this step, because if we miss this, then we're going to get discarded as the irrelevant, in the irrelevant pile.
How long do people stay in this stage? Is this something where you got to get in and get them quick, or would people stay in this curiosity stage a little longer?
It's going to vary. The thing that's important to recognize is that at this moment, when somebody is starting to, they're asking questions, they've been introduced to your brand, your nonprofit. The initial decision is going to be quick. And maybe they're on your website, maybe you're having a face-to-face conversation and you're explaining what you do. Well, that person may have a Facebook page. They are very quickly going to, again, this is the idea of first impressions. And this is not just marketing, this is relationships. When you meet somebody new, our have to think about it. We immediately make a decision, just subconsciously, we make a decision about this person. Hey, this is somebody that I like. I'm going to try to find somebody else to go talk to.
Right.
And same thing with marketing on our websites, conversations, etc.
So what are the customers in the curiosity stage looking for? What do they want to hear at this point?
They want basic information. They want clarity, for one. They want me to clearly communicate, what do you do? Just tell me. Don't try to be clever. Don't try to be witty. Just be clear. I just want to know, do you do something that's going to help me? Are you worth my time? Yes or no? And that's really, it comes down very pragmatically. So that they want clarity. They want you to be able to tell them what you do and how does it benefit them? Are you worth their time? Should they spend more time on your website, or are they going to go back to Facebook?
Got it. So how can a business communicate clearly? What do they need to be doing?
One of the big things is having a clear message. One of the shows that we did a few weeks ago was talking about how to clarify your message and creating what we call a one-liner. And that is a simple, quick answer to that question. What do you do? Put it on your website. Have it memorized. Have your team memorize it. So that way, when you get asked that question, whether in a face-to-face conversation, whether it's through email, whether it's on your website, whether it's in a sales proposal or presentation, having that answer will make all the difference in the world. So that's one of the big things. And the other is on your website, make sure that the top section, what we call the hero section, your main image, your headline, those needs to be spot on. A couple of seconds, answer those questions. What do you do? Are we going to do, or do we offer you something that's of value?
Okay. So someone comes to the website, They're curious. They get the clear message. You've passed their grunt test, and now they are enlightened. So what
Okay.
happens in this enlightenment stage?
So enlightenment, this is where really, so again, that first step, kind of the big question people are asking is what? What do you do? Well, enlightenment is where we now have the opportunity to start building trust.
Mhm.
So at this point, people have said, okay, I think you're worth my time, but now I want to know, how do you help me? How do you solve my problems? How do you make my life better?
Mhm.
And so those are the questions that we want as a marketer, as a business, as a nonprofit. Those are the questions we want to answer.
Mhm. So one question I had that I think you might have already answered is, how do you lead someone out of curiosity into enlightenment? And I think that the main point is that grunt test mentality of just
Mhm.
clearly and simply communicating what you do and why it matters. Is there anything else there that I missed or that
Well,
help
you know,
into the next day?
well, a lot of it is, it depends on how you answer and how someone handles that curiosity stage. If we can answer that question in a way that helps them make a decision, yes, you're relevant. No, you're not. Then the natural next step is enlightenment.
Mhm.
And of course, the way that we build our websites, we follow a story type structure, because story is simply a communication device that our brains are wired to understand. So we put it in a framework, we put it in a flow that it helps the brain immediately understand what you do. And then we immediately help them understand the problem,
Mhm.
so that they can go, okay, so now I know what you do. And as we move into enlightenment, we begin to help them understand, hey, we know your problem. We understand it. We understand the pain and the frustration that this causes you, and we can help you solve that problem.
What specifically are they looking for? Are there certain questions that we need to be answering to help them move through this stage?
People have a lot of questions, and some of the basics are, how do you help me? What are your services? What does the process look like?
Mhm.
What are the steps involved? And we've talked about this previously, that one of the things that we always tell our clients is, as the brand,
Mhm.
you are the guide in the story. And so for those that maybe you haven't heard me talk about this before, the structure of stories, you have a hero, you have a character who is the customer. They
Mhm.
have something they want, but there's a problem that gets in the way that keeps them from achieving that. Well, in a lot of stories, what happens is the hero meets a guide. A guide is an expert who also has empathy, who understands the challenges, and the guide has a plan to solve the problem. So part of enlightenment is communicating to that person, to that customer or potential customer, I understand the problem, and here's how I can help solve it.
Mhm.
And the question then that follows that is, well, how do I know?
Mhm.
What's the proof? And so
Mhm.
that's where we get into things like testimonials
Yeah.
and case studies and other things that demonstrate that authority. So it's not just me talking about it, but
Mhm.
it's someone else who can verify what I'm saying.
Mhm. Yeah, I was wondering if that was where, if the social proof part fell into the enlightenment stage, and it sounds like, yeah, this is the right place to put those testimonials.
Absolutely.
Yeah, even if you're, I would say, whether it's your website or an email campaign or anything, it's just always important to incorporate those specific examples. Maybe even a case study. Would that be an appropriate place to drop
Yeah,
that? Yeah.
absolutely. Case studies are great, because that demonstrates, here's what the scenario was before, here was the challenge that this person or company was facing,
Mhm.
and here was the solution that we brought to the table, and here is what success looks like. And that too, that helps people put things in context.
So, I think I've heard you say that sometimes people will kind of rush from curiosity to commitment and not spend enough time in enlightenment. What is that because people, why is that? How is this
Well,
step that's overlooked?
so, and to clarify, a lot of times it's the marketers, it's the business owners, it's the marketing staff or the executive director who, when people don't understand these three steps, I'm just going to toss them back up here on the screen. When you don't understand these steps, and that this is the process people are going to go through. People are going to go through it at different paces. Some people will go through this very quickly. Some people could go through this in a matter of minutes. Some people will take weeks or months to go through this process. There's a lot of context that affects this. But what happens is commitment is where your customer, your donor, is first experiencing some sort of risk. Okay. So curiosity, they're gathering information. Enlightenment, they're getting more information, building trust. There's nothing being asked in those stages. What they're committing is a little bit of time to learn more. Now, as we move, the natural progression in sales and marketing is we're moving people towards making a buying decision. That is the end game. That's why marketing exists. That's why sales exists. That's why business development. That's why it exists. We want to get people to that decision point. And so what happens, AnnieLaurie, is sometimes people, marketers, business owners, they go straight to commitment. The very first thing they do is they ask for the sale. And I'll give you a good example of this. In fact, I just recently had this conversation with a business owner. We were talking about how this works. And a good example is somebody running Facebook ads. And I've seen this time and time again. They run a Facebook ad to an audience of people who do not know the company. They do not know the individual. And yet in that ad, what's being asked is, hey, schedule a free consultation or buy my product. And what happens is if I'm getting that kind of an ad, think about it. If you see that kind of ad on Facebook, first of all, typically when you're on Facebook, you're not in business mode. Or if you are, maybe it's the middle of the day and you're kind of skipping around. If you see that kind of ad, what are you going to do? If you've never heard of this company, are you going to schedule an appointment? Are you going to buy their product because of that ad?
Right.
No. And it's because I don't even know what you do. There's no trust. I haven't gone through enlightenment. And so the mistake that people make here is either the business doesn't ask or they ask at the wrong time.
Got it. So, and not to get too into specifics, but in the example of the Facebook ad, like what would be a better way to message that?
Well, and that'll get into, that starts getting into specific like ad strategy. But the basic idea is, and it's a very valid approach, using Facebook ads, targeting a cold audience that doesn't know that, your business or brand, but you've got to warm people up. You've got to introduce something. So that could be some sort of just content that's not asking anything of them. Share some tips. Do a video where you're offering advice or something of value to that audience. And all you're asking them to do basically is watch a video or read a few sentences. And that's where we get into content writing and how do you write an effective headline and that first sentence that just really has to grab somebody's attention. And then once someone has been exposed to ads along those lines, and now we're starting to warm them up. Now we're starting to give them a little bit of an idea of who we are. We can build some trust, and then we can start asking them to elevate the level of commitment.
How long do we stay in that stage of building trust, or is that sort of variable? Just depending
yeah, I mean, really, the enlightenment stage, again, it can happen very quickly. If somebody comes in by way of a referral, or one of your existing customers has referred this person to you, well, their trust level is already going to be high,
right?
Because they're coming in on the word of someone who they know and trust.
Yeah.
So it's, in effect, it's a borrowed trust.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, you've got a strong PR background, and that's one of the things of PR is, if it's an independent third party who's reporting on something, there tends to be more credibility and more trust placed in that information as opposed to something that was a paid advertisement.
For brands or people who might feel hesitant to make the ask,
Right.
sometimes people get stuck in the enlightenment stage. How can people get unstuck and move from enlightenment to commitment and make it more concrete ask?
Well, one of the things that we recommend is a practical thing. And I didn't make note of this earlier. This is the first of a 4-part series.
Yes.
And we are going to come back and spend time on each of these stages and look at things tactically. What can you do in the curiosity stage? How can you market and communicate through enlightenment? How can you market and communicate through commitment? But to that point, to answer your question, to start moving people from enlightenment to commitment, we want to be clear on what people need to do next. We want to give people a couple of options. And what we recommend is having at least 2 options on your website. And one of those is what we call the direct call to action. And that's, what's the next step in the sales process? What's the next step they need to do in order to become your customer? That could be schedule an appointment. That could be sign up for a free demo. It could be any number of different things, but what's the next thing they need to do? Now, not everybody's ready for that. Again, some people spend a long time in enlightenment. Some people go through it pretty quick, depending on what they're experiencing at the moment, how they're coming into you, et cetera. But the second kind of ask, which is a lower level of commitment, so there's lower risk, and that's to give them some sort of a resource. A lot of times we'll create downloadable PDFs. It could be the infographic for the orthodontist that answers your top 20 questions about braces. It could be for the 401k company, and it's explaining a particular type of 401k investment. But what we do is we give them something that they can get in exchange for an email address. So we're helping educate. We're continuing. So you can see where it's not just cut and dry between enlightenment and commitment. There's going to be this overlap sometimes. So that first step of commitment, of downloading something like that PDF, well, they're still being enlightened, but they've made a commitment. They've taken that step, and they've entrusted us enough with their email address. And so now we have the opportunity, through that content, through email, to continue building trust and credibility, and then coming back to asking them to take that next big step.
Okay. So are there any things that a business can do in this stage to increase the likelihood? Like, is there any best practice on timing or frequency or follow-up that would be helpful?
Yeah, the simple recommendation is, on your website, call to action. Again, that direct call to action. Repeat it multiple times throughout your homepage. What you're doing is, you're not being obnoxious. You're not being pushy. You're being clear. You're giving people the opportunity to make a decision. When I was dating my wife, if I had gone up to her initially and sort of hemmed and hawed and said something like, hey, you know what, I really like to eat. There's this great restaurant that I've heard about. Man, I just, at some point, I really want to go eat there. And I don't want to go by myself.
Yeah.
I'm hinting. There's sort of this passive, well, I don't want to put myself at risk, or I don't want to seem pushy. No. Hey, there's this great restaurant. Can I take you? And being direct. So that gives people that. Also, the other thing it does is, it does help build trust in them, because it shows that you're confident that you can solve their problem.
Yeah.
So that would be, and again, we'll get into this more in a few weeks, but as a quick takeaway, have a clear call to action, make sure it's specific, and repeat the same one multiple times on your homepage. Put it in your top right navigation bar, so that way it stays on the screen and it's visible from any page on the website.
Okay. Question. So, when I'm thinking about a website and I'm thinking about these 3 stages, do the stages apply to certain areas of a website? Like, if you think about like a wireframe,
Yeah.
The question makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and so what that does, and I'll actually, this is a good springboard into sort of previewing the next couple of weeks.
Sure.
When we wireframe out a website, which is basically a blueprint for your homepage, we lay things out in an order that it naturally takes people through these stages. We take them from curiosity to enlightenment to commitment. We make it clear. We communicate so that people understand what you do, the value that you provide, how you solve their problems, and what they need to do next. And we do it in a way that helps elevate trust, because that's ultimately what we're doing throughout this whole process. We want to build trust and lower the sense of risk.
Gotcha. That is really helpful. And what I love about all of this is that once you can see the pattern or the framework, it starts to really click. Okay, this is where I need to put this content. Here's how I need to change this piece to make it more direct or intentional, or, give another offer here. That's what I really like, is that it's just so straightforward. But
absolutely. And, in this, I just tossed it up on the screen just as a quick rehash. As we move people through these stages, people are going to go through this at different speeds. Some people will zip right through it. The more expensive a product or service, the longer it will take them, because the risk is higher. If it's a $5 product, there's not a lot of risk.
Right.
If it's a $5,000 service, there's much higher risk.
Mm-hmm.
And when it's higher risk, it typically will take a longer time to go through this process. Again, there's exceptions on both sides, but
sure.
But yeah, this exists. We've got to be mindful of it. Otherwise, we're gonna miss opportunities.
Yeah. One question I had that I forgot to ask was, what about our current customers or former customers, past customers who have shown loyalty? How do we need to be, people who have committed or at one point committed, but need to continue to invest in those relationships too? How do we do that?
Well, the short answer is our existing customers, our existing donors can be a big resource in helping us win new customers, whether it's through referrals and introductions, whether it's through testimonials, leaving online reviews. So that's a really good question. Be mindful of the folks that have already made those commitments, because they can become a very important part of your marketing plan to grow your business moving down the road.
Yeah. And that goes back to some of that borrowed trust you were talking about before. Sometimes you can leverage happy, loyal fans of your product or service to lend you some of that trust and extend that to new business, new opportunities. And that seems to be an ideal place to land.
Absolutely. And so in the weeks ahead, for our viewers, our listeners, I'll mention here, if you have any questions, please feel free to toss them in the comments. We'll be on here for just a couple more minutes. But the recording of this episode will be on YouTube. It's on Facebook. We'll have the podcast up early next week. So again, it'll be on Anchor, iTunes, Spotify. So find us there, subscribe. Just search for Wayfind Marketing Live. You'll find all of our previous episodes. Next Friday, we're going to dive into curiosity. We're going to go through, what does that look like? What are some of the questions that your customers or potential customers are asking at that stage, so that you can have answers? Again, we don't want to go straight to commitment. We want to make sure that we think through these stages. We're going to give you practical tips that you can use. And really, a lot of what we're doing is we're laying a foundation. So when you understand more clearly how people buy, it makes your marketing and it makes your communication a lot more effective, because now, instead of just jumping straight to commitment, you recognize, okay, we've got to go through curiosity. We have to go through enlightenment, and then we get to commitment. And when we do that, the percentage of people who say yes is going to be significantly higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I gotta confess to you something. When we've been preparing for this show in the last week, and I keep thinking about one of my favorite movies from the '90s, Jerry Maguire. Did you see Jerry Maguire? I'm sure you have. Everybody's on your
You know, I'm probably one of 10 people that hasn't seen. I've been meaning to watch it, but I know the basic story. I know the essence of the movie.
Well, there, you know, in the story, he occasionally will reference one of his mentors in the sports agency world, and one of the quotes is, "The key to this business is personal relationships." And I keep thinking about the movie and just like the whole premise of that, like how, you know, investing in the right relationships to the biggest returns. And I just keep hearing that voice in the back of my head.
No, that's great. And so we'll close out on that. This weekend, maybe I need to go watch Jerry Maguire this weekend.
There you go. Show me the
something to do this weekend now, other than change my oil today. All right, guys. Well, everybody, thank you for joining us. Follow us, like us on YouTube, share this with some friends. We would love to continue to reach more people, to help equip and encourage. Actually, I normally say that, encourage and equip, and just help make marketing easier so you can grow and amplify your business or your nonprofit. So thanks, everybody. Have a fantastic weekend. And we'll be back next Friday, noon Central Time. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Bye.
Bye.